And believe it or not, you'll see some arguing that rendering humanity extinct might be the path forward from a wider ecological frame, a larger kind of moral frame. We'll see some examples of that as we go on, but of course, I think that is perhaps not the way that we should go. So the point being that there are, in other words, philosophical or ideological exacerbations of this scenario of existential risk. And again, I point to John Leslie here, who gives just a few examples. For example, there's threats from religious ideology, the notion that we might need to hasten the eschaton or the apocalypse because the better world, in some sense, is just behind the veil of this one. Or, of course, in the philosophical domain, there's no shortage of Schopenhauerian forms of pessimism, right? Which might argue that existence is really no good, right? And we should find ways to get out of existence, either individually or on a mass kind of scale. There's various forms of value relativism, emotivism, or prescriptivism, which may arguably be quite harmful to pursuits of avoiding extinction, avoiding existential risk. So the whole question of value becomes quite important. Forms of inverse utilitarianism, for example, the drive to minimize harm. And some have taken that to lengths saying we should not have children, right? Existence is harmful. We should not have children. This is a way of, again, putting our future at risk when it comes to existence, when it comes to our continuation. There's forms of ethical presentism as well. Again, just giving you some examples, which are based on this notion that what is immediate is what needs attention, right? Or the notion that we have no obligations really to an uncertain and open future, right? That future is a domain of possibility. And you might find philosophers arguing that, my obligations are not to the future. They're now in some sense. Of course, varieties of misanthropy and nihilism, that is, forms of hatred of the human race, forms of nihilism. We've seen political ideologies of retribution and hatred, forms of economic hedonism, and of course, we could name many more. The broader point here is that behind existential risk certainly is a certain ideological frame that is philosophically significant, right? And so the ideas we hold impact the way in which we approach the real risks of our extinction. Now, I mentioned, I want to give you a few examples.